Now, the question is, if we have three branches of government that are co-equal, how then does the Supreme Court get to rule on Trump's executive orders? And Trump himself has said, look, he's got executive power and the court should not be interfering with his exercise of his powers. Well, the short answer is that under our Constitution, the Supreme Court is to decide questions under the Constitution because somebody has to decide that, whether or not the executive branch is exceeding his powers or whether the Congress is exceeding their powers. And there are many Supreme Court decisions where the court has struck down legislation that has been passed by Congress because it violated another provision of the Constitution, whether it's the First Amendment or even the Second Amendment, due process, what have you. So the Supreme Court actually ruled in one of their first cases that said that the Supreme Court has the constitutional right to say what the law is. Someone has to be a final arbiter. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that the other two branches have their hands tied. For example, if the Supreme Court rules that a law by Congress violated the Constitution, the Congress can amend that law and make it and tailor it so it doesn't violate the Constitution, but nevertheless still carries out what they intended to do. The same with executive orders by the president. And we had the Supreme Court overturned some of Joe Biden's executive orders dealing with forgiving student loans, where Joe Biden just waved a wand and said, I hereby forgive student loans. And the Supreme Court said, hey, wait a minute. The Congress has the legislative powers to decide whether these kind of loans should be forgiven. You don't have that unilateral power. And the Supreme Court also did that when Biden issued a moratorium on raising rents across the country, a moratorium. And the court said, no, you don't have the authority to do that. And it also was another case dealing with the COVID regulations, et cetera. So there, the Supreme Court has knocked down certain executive powers that the president has exercised, whether it's Joe Biden or whether it's President Trump. But at this point, these cases involving the executive orders of President Trump have not been knocked down because they're still working their way to the Supreme Court for a hearing on the merits. We've been having some intermediate hearings. For example, just today, the Supreme Court said that the Trump administration can ban transgender military soldiers from the Army, et cetera. And they said, the lower court said, no, you can't do that yet. And the Supreme Court said, well, yes, he can. Right now, they put what's called a stay of that opinion. It's going back to the Ninth Circuit to rule on the merits whether, in fact, the president does have the power to ban transgender military people from the military service. I think he's going to win on that because the military is within the purview of the president's powers and as commander-in-chief. So that's one example where the courts are usually deferential to the president. So we'll see how all these challenges play out.
Do you have a question for Kamenar? Just drop it in the comments and keep an eye out for Paul's answer right here.
To learn more about the NLPC's mission to investigate and expose government and corporate corruption, please visit nlpc.org.